Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Scott Martin, and this one is titled The Great Olive Dig. Yep, there's a few people that came along for an olive dig over in South Australia in Adelaide very recently, which I was fortunate enough to be part of. It's an amazing experience. Seriously, going out there and collecting wild trees, Yamadori, it's like a rite of passage, and it's very exciting. The hunt, I love the hunt. I love the search that you would go on, try and find these trees. And I have issues with collecting native materials, but when it's a pest, a feral pest, and we're doing some good in collecting these things and disposing of them and using them for bonsai, I think it makes you feel good. It makes you feel warm on the inside. Oh, I know my muscles felt bloody warm on the inside after all that digging and carting and carrying and all that stuff. But geez, it was a good experience. It was lots of fun. So I want to spend this episode of the podcast, which is episode 31, season 6, is cracking along. I want to talk a little bit about some repotting things later on in the podcast, but I want to talk about this olive dig and just let you know all the adventures we went on. So tune in. Here we go. Before the dig. So, getting ready for the dig, that was very exciting in itself. Making sure you've got all the tools that you need, because when you travel nearly 8.5, 9 hours from your home, it's you're isolated. You've got really no means of getting access to things, so you've got to make sure that you're prepared. So going through these things, it's okay. Well, it's not like a normal dig either, where you maybe go and collect something that's close to home, you chuck it in the back of the car or whatever it is, and then you're home with it, and you can deal with it and you can pot it up. It's like, okay, so it's a day to drive there, then you've got to do the dig, then you've got to stay that night because it's obviously late, and then drive home at the earliest the next day. So you've got to make sure that you're fully prepared for this stuff. So it was, all right, so get the shovel, get the pick. Okay, so now I've got to get the crowbar in case I need to get something under there and get some leverage, because I've heard all these stories about these olives being massive and digging their way into the ground, and then I'm thinking, okay, so I'll take a chainsaw so we can cut off branches, and I'll take an axe. An axe is great because that'll help me if I need to cut through the ground and sever roots and that sort of thing to try and get some kind of opening. Shovel, spade, whatever, just to try and dig it out. All right, so I've got all that stuff. All right, so now what else do I need? How do I get these things home? And I was thinking, okay, so really I want one. I don't want another batch of trees that I'm going to be spending the next 100 years on. I want one good tree. So I'd set this target for myself in my head. I didn't stick to it, but I'll get to that. A target of one tree. And I thought, take your time. You've got a whole day of digging. You're meeting at sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock, or whatever it was in the morning, and you've got till, well after lunch to get one tree out of the ground. You'll be fine. No matter how hard it is to get out, I'm sure you'll be able to do it. So when I was getting ready, it's like, all right, so now I've got to wrap the root ball in something, and what's the best thing to put it in? So I've got some black plastic, and I went, oh, what if the black plastic isn't sturdy enough? Or I get some tarps, and then next thing you know, I've got 3 or 4 tarps, and I've got some black plastic, heavy duty black plastic, and I was saying to myself at that time, you've restricted yourself to one tree and one tree only, so why do you need more than one tarp? But anyway, logic was pushed to the side because I thought you're better to be safe than sorry. You're the day's drive from home, you might as well be prepared. So I got some tape to wrap around these things to try and hold in moisture. And I thought, well, okay, I've got to put moisture in there. Best thing to hold in moisture that I can think of is sphagnum moss. So I grabbed a bag of sphagnum moss and a spray bottle, and I thought, that'll do. If I can get the trees out of the ground, it's winter. So I'm thinking it's not going to be too hot. It's not going to be too bad. Hopefully it doesn't pour with rain, but, I'm hopeful that we've got a reasonable day. It's not too hot. Roots that are coming off these things, really, there won't be much anyway, I wouldn't think. So a bit of sphagnum moss and tape them up in a tarp, throw them in the back of the ute, and that'll be right. We'll be fine. So I threw those in, got all that loaded up there. I don't know why at the time I thought I needed a big bag. Like I'm stretching my hands out now. It's probably a 50 centimetre bag of sphagnum moss for one tree. But lo and behold, I did. I did take that into the back of the car with the multiple layers of tarp and plastic, builder's plastic to wrap around these things and get ready. But it was really exciting. Like that part of the trip I found really, really fascinating, and making sure that I had things checked off, and I'd go through the scenario in my head and go, okay, so yep, you've got to dig around the base, then you've got to chip away at the roots, then you've got to be able to lever the tree up and break rock or get underneath them, and then you've got to be able to at one point take some of the weight off, because without having been to the location, I'm assuming when you dig these things up, it's a bit of a trek back. Like you don't sort of park your car and your car's right next to where the trees are. There's always a bit of a hike with these things, and I'm thinking, it's not like collecting a light frame thing. The olives generally have fairly big bases on them, and they're quite bulbous underneath, like a big onion under the ground. And I thought, I've got the chainsaw. I can take the chainsaw down with me. All right, so all the plans are sounding great. The car's loaded, triple checked it. Like, I was excited like a kid before Christmas. I'd been through and checked and double checked and laid it all out 3 times on the ground and put it back in the truck. And it's like, yeah, okay, we're good. I am absolutely set. Set the alarm to leave. Out of bed about 4:45 in the morning. In the car by 5:30 on a Thursday to try and beat the traffic getting out of good old Melbourne, where it can be a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, crossing from one side of the city to get to the other to head over towards the westerly direction towards Adelaide. And it didn't let me down. It was a bit of a nightmare, but anyway, we got there. We were traveling, and when you travel over, maybe it's just me. You might be in the same boat as me and seeking help for it like I do, but whenever I tend to drive long distances, a lot of my gaze goes towards the trees that we drive past, especially in open fields. There's something about driving in a rural area on a nice straight piece of road where there's no other traffic coming around. It's just you and a highway somewhere, and you look out to the side and you see a bit of a barbed wire fence, and then this massive lush green fields, and then just in the distance you see either a grove of trees of some kind or just even a solo tree. And I look at it and I can't tell you how many times I said to my wife Lisa and my travel buddy, my dig buddy, look at that tree. That's amazing. That just seriously, I reckon she must have put her AirPods in at one point and just ignored me. But I get smitten by these things when you drive past. And part of the trip, we were just near a little town called Beaufort. Now, if you've done the trip from Melbourne to Adelaide, it's sort of between Ballarat and Ararat or Halls Gap, a beautiful hilly part. But anyway, this part of Beaufort, when you're through Beaufort and you're heading towards Ararat, there's these big grassy plains, and I love it. I've been through this way a couple of times, and it's always this one spot that comes up on me. And you look at these beautiful, magnificent eucalypts or gum trees, and they're in big fields together, but they're solo trees. And every single one of them, I just imagine that they could be an absolutely magnificent bonsai. And when I know you're flying past them about 110 k's an hour, so you don't get a lot of time to sit and ponder. But when you see them, I look for. It's like, okay, what would you change? Nothing. That's perfect. All right, next one. What would you change that one? Oh, no, nothing. I reckon that's great. It's lovely. And there was one spot which was magical. It was bloody freezing on the way out of Melbourne down to, in the minuses, -2, -3, and all the grass was white with the frost over it, and the trees had white leaves. Like it was just beautiful. And as we head out and we get to this part of Beaufort, the sun had started coming up by this stage. I think it was maybe, God, 8, 9 o'clock, something like that, whatever it was. And the sun had started to come up. So where the sun hit, the grass had all turned green and the leaves on the trees had turned green. But in the shadow of the trees, it was still white. And it was just an absolutely beautiful sight to see as you're driving along. So this the trip for me heading across to dig up these olives was just getting better and better. And I'm one of these people that when I say I'm going from point A to point B, I don't plan a lot of stops. It's when you need fuel and you might throw down a little bit of food at one, but it's I'm pretty much I'm about the arrival. I want to get there as quickly as I can, and it's well planned and well thought out, and that was the case with this. And seeing these trees on the way through Beaufort, it was like, oh my God, this is just perfect. This is just as good as it gets. Anyway, so when we get to, I'll wrap this section of the podcast up with we arrived there. We spent the night in a little town just out just this side of Adelaide in the hills called Harndorf. If you haven't been there, it's a magic little German town. It's just got beer halls and lolly shops. That's perfect. It's a great place. So we stayed there for the night, and as I went to bed that night, I felt like I'd had too many steins, but I also felt like tomorrow was going to be a great day because we were heading into Adelaide to set up and meet with a few people before the dig, which was going to happen on the Saturday. So it was very exciting. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really do love the subscribers to this podcast. It means a lot to the continuity of it, and it means a lot to me to know that I've got the support of a range of people out there that really believe in what this podcast is about. So thank you very much. And if you aren't a subscriber but you're thinking about it, you can jump on board for as little as $3 a month. And like I said, it really does go a long way to supporting the continuity of this podcast for everybody. So please consider, and if you'd like to, and if you've got the means to, then jump on board and become a bonsai lover like the rest of us. The dig. I love this section. So we head into Adelaide, caught up with some great friends and got to catch up with each other again, and that was really nice. And to bed relatively early, knowing that the next day was going to be a hectic day, a very busy day, a labour-intensive day is what I thought, to be honest. But I still struggled to go to sleep. I really was so bloody excited about digging these trees, to the point that if you go back to that feeling you had when you first started bonsai, and you knew on the Friday night that the Saturday morning you were going to go to a bonsai nursery and look for stock and have a bit of a hunt around and have a look through and see what they've got. And it's that thought that you're going to get, that magical tree, a tree that can join your collection that is unbelievable, a bargain, whatever it is, just that sheer excitement that, well, as I said, maybe it's me, but this is my podcast and this is how I feel. So anyway, we get to the dig. I had to drive 30, 40 minutes, something like that, down south from where we were staying in North Adelaide. And it was to meet at this Hungry Jack's car park, just a fast food takeaway car park, rock in there. And we were early, but the car park was full. Everyone was there early, and it was so nice. You get out of the car, and there's friendly faces from people that I'd met when I'd been to Adelaide before from the club. There was new faces. There was friendly faces from people that had made the trip from Victoria as well. And that was the great part about this dig, was that it was a combining of these two great bonsai clubs, the South Australian Bonsai Society and the Victorian Bonsai Society, or Bonsai Society of Victoria, to do this dig. The Victorian team was invited over by the South Australian team, and to come together like that, it was honestly, it was fantastic. I think that is probably one of the biggest highlights that I had, was that camaraderie and that uniting of people and coming together. And often you'll see people, or people make comments, or they'll chat with each other online, and that's great. Or you might see each other at a national convention, or the odd show here or there, or something like that. But to get a bunch of bonsai nuts in one spot, G'd up to to the hilt, ready to go to dig these olives and be so excited. And people that were local had done it before, and they were still excited. And it was so nice to be invited and to feel welcome in that scenario. So seriously, hats off and kudos to the crew from South Australia that did all the hard work, and Matt and Luke and his team over there, and David and everyone that put this together, the nuts and bolts. It's it's one thing to come up with an idea, but the second part is to make it a reality, and those guys did a great job. So we met up in this car park, and then we get called together, and it's like, okay, so we're going to go in 5 minutes, go and get your coffees inside, whatever. So we all do that, and we're all waiting outside, and then we get the brief, and it was it was amazing. It was I can't explain. It was like you were going to an adventure, and you were getting given the rules and the requirements and what was expected, and what we should do and how we should act, and then there was sharing of local delicacies from South Australia, local biscuits that we can't get across the border. And it was really cool. And then to formalise everything too, everyone had to get their shoes sprayed before we went into the national parks, just as a safety thing. And then it was, all right, let's go. Let's convoy it out of this car park. We've got about 5 minutes around the corner to drive, so let's all do it together. And the funniest thing was, I think we're about the third last car out of the car park. So there was a heap of cars piling out of this thing, and just one after the other. And some poor cars came in between trying to look for a car park to go to the fast food chain for breakfast. And there's 20 or 30 bonsai cars all tearing out of these car parks, backing out, trying to get out of this thing. And I remember just looking at this lady's face, just shaking her head as she's coming into the car park going, what is happening here? Anyway, so we get out of there and we start convoying, and that was really cool in itself, because we were going up this hill, and I said, quick, let's take a photo. And as we're going up this hill, you just see these car after car after car just all lined up heading to this national park. Anyway, get to the national park, get out, unravel everything, and we sort of get the drill. Okay, so you got to walk down here a little bit, then you've got to go in here, and then we start going down the hill, and we get in there, and it's like, okay, so let's take the tools. I know I've bought a bucket load of stuff, but if this is rough terrain, because we got given the heads up that there's a big valley in there, a big gully, and there's some serious drop-offs, dangerous stuff. So don't go wandering far from tracks. Don't just head out by yourself. Always make sure you're in pairs, all that sort of safety stuff. And at the time, I remember thinking, it's a national park, surely it can't be that bad. But it was seriously like going into the wilderness, where you got a couple of meters off one of these tracks and you didn't know where you were. And at one point, I put a drone up in the air to take photos, because I thought the idea would be that we would see the group of people in this area that were all digging trees, and it would look great. Like it would just be a top-down view of olive trees being dug out by a group of people. When you put the drone up and you get to a good height where you can see the area, look down, I couldn't find anyone. It was incredible. It was that thick and dense with these olives that you could reach your arm out and touch and spin in a circle and touch 3 or 4 trees. Like that's how close they were, and they were big trees. Like they were bigger than what I expected. So anyway, I thought, well, if we're going that far, let's not take the chainsaw. Let's take, maybe crowbar, shovel, and axe and pick, and that'll do. That'll get us a good start. And if we need extra stuff, we can come back to the ute and get it. And as we're walking down, we get the drill saying, don't go too far. Right, go. And everyone sort of runs off and go. And one of the funniest things was we get given the instruction, all right, so take your time. You've got ages. Don't, be fussy. That's the best advice we can give you. For everyone that's been here before, we'll, just tell you that, if you find a great tree, there's a better one 2 steps away, and there's an even better one 2 steps away from that. So just take your time and don't rush into it. And then we hear the red, righto, let's go. And I kid you not, within about 10 seconds of being saying, let's go, you hear this thud, 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 where someone started digging already right where we walked in the place. So anyway, this stage, there was Lisa and David and 3 of us. We trek off, and I said, let's go down this way to the right, because someone had said, I found better trees over towards the left. So I'm thinking, well, if everyone's going to the left, let's go to the right and see what we can find. And we walk into this grove, this wild grove of all these olives. And as you're walking in there, you go, oh, that's really good. That's a good one. Oh, hang on, there might be a better one. Just leave it. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. Anyway, David's like, who's done the dig before, let's just keep it on, and we'll just go wherever you want. And we'll very accommodating, and we're walking and walking, and sort of you get maybe a tree away from them off the track, and you'd look back and you go, where is everyone? You're there, and you'd lose each other very quickly. That's how thick and dense it was. So anyway, long story short, we walked very long way to the right-hand side just to turn around and come all the way back, find where we originally started, and go in maybe 5 or 10 metres from there and find an amazing crop of beautiful trees that we started digging on, started working on. If you want to see the action from it, just jump on Instagram and have a look at the latest post on the trees for the olive dig, where the axe is swinging, the picks are going, and they're just amazing, these things. So it was, I don't know if it's peculiar to this area, but the area we were in, for some reason, there was a lot of low down branching on these trees, which we were told by the local guys that, hey, they're good trees. Like, they're not big, tall, straight sticks. If you hunt around, you'll find something with nice nabari, but you'll get something with a bit of movement in it as well, and hopefully a bit of taper and something you can create without too much scarring. And that was my pure focus, was make sure you dig a tree that's got a lot of potential, that's got something that you can throw 20, 30 years into to make really nice. Because when you dig the tree out, I was saying to myself, the things that I want done, in the stages of development, you 1, trunk and nabari, 2, primary, 3, secondary, and 4 ramification. I'm thinking, I just want trunk and nabari. If I can get a really nice nabari and I can get a really nice trunk on this thing, then that's it, job done. Because the rest of it I want to build myself. So I was looking, and anyway, got into it, did the dig, worked out that it was hard to dig the trees out. It was very sweaty work, in that, I went there being late winter, about 3 jackets on and, shirts and whatever else, and loaded to the hilt. Anyway, stripped down to just a T-shirt. And I don't know if you've ever been kissed by a wild olive, but I have now. And what I mean by that is, as you walk between these trees, they're so thick and dense, and there's so many dry, dead branches that as you walk through, these things cut the hell out of you. And it was only at one point, I'm putting it down to adrenaline, why I didn't feel it was, I got told, hey, you're bleeding quite profusely from the arm there near your elbow. And I look over and it's like, yeah, I've got scratches everywhere. And I looked at my other arm and I had exactly the same thing too. So the olives did their darndest on me, but there's one. I ended up with 2 trees. Long story short, we dug 4 in total. One was for someone else, one was for my dig buddy, and I ended up taking 2. So I stopped myself at that. I'll say I stopped myself at that, but what I did was I nearly died from exhaustion and couldn't lift the shovel anymore. So I decided that was enough for me in that period of time. We always had the Sunday we could come back and dig as well, but time was limited, as it's repotting time here for me. So I had to hightail it, but I'll get to the after side in the next section of the podcast. But it was such a good experience, and when we repeated the process and we got these trees out of the ground, there's a feeling when you're digging trees, when they come out of the ground, you just go, wow. And then you get to see, because often with these things, a lot of the nabari, the base of the tree is completely covered by dirt. You can scrape it back a little bit, but you don't see the score until you've got it out of the ground. And when you get them out of the ground, they're dug and they're in front of you, and you look at them, you go, that's pretty good. that's going to be a really nice tree there. And, I remember dug 1 and went, okay, that's it. We got to find one more. I really want 2 now. Oh, do we start the trek again? Literally had pushed one out of the ground, turned around, reached out a metre and said, oh, there it is. That tree there's even better than the one I've just dug. And it was side by side with this other one. So turned around, started digging, did another one, repeated exactly the same process. And by the end of it, I was stuffed. But then the hardest part is that you've got all your tools, and I took a drone with me as well to throw up and see these. So we had the drone to carry as well. There was 3 of us carrying stuff out. You had all these clothes that you'd taken off that you were dripping in sweat with, because it was a nice, beautiful, sunny day. The bonsai god smiled on us, and we got a magnificent day for digging. Not one drop of rain, nothing. It was cooler in the morning, and then it got to beautiful blue sunshine. Not one breath of wind. It was meant to be, seriously. But then we had to carry these bloody trees up to the car, and the last one that I had, which was a doozy, I actually had to get help carrying it. So, thank you for my carry buddy that helped me get to the car, because it would have taken about an extra hour on top of the dig to carry the trees up, and it would have been multiple trips with the tool. So it was very exciting. They're removing, they're repeating, the getting to the car, and then suddenly going, that is it. There was nothing in the tank. I was on empty by this stage. So much so that there were no goodbyes, there were no farewells. It was like, speak to the president of the Bonsai Club and Matt and said, hey, listen, mate, just letting you know we are gone. As soon as I get to the car and I load these trees up, the only thing you're going to see is my number plate as I drive away, because I am not hanging around anymore. I want to go and get a coffee somewhere. I want to put my feet up, and I want to probably have an afternoon nap as well, because I was bloody exhausted. But it was absolutely exhilarating. After the dig, I love this part too. This was seriously, it was like a culmination of so many good thoughts and bonsai love that came together in one room. We all got together, or not everyone came, but everyone was invited that had been along to the dig to come along and share some pizza and a couple of beers and tell your war stories and your tales of the dig, and just get together in a nice environment that was put on again by the fellas in South Australia. That was just, like I said, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it was so nice to have all of those people together, because it was a bit of a rush. We said a quick hello in the car park at the briefing. And basically, when you get to the dig site, it's just like roaches scattering. Everyone took off to get their spot. Everyone had their favourites, and once you sort of marked your tree and you started the dig, it was like that was your space and your area. So it was, and you might have had a bit of a chat on the way back to the car, and how'd you go? What'd you get? Some people dug little stuff, some people dug massive stuff, some people dug stuff in between, and it was just, some people filled their boots. Other people got one tree. Others, maybe took a few. It was just such a variety of time spent doing things for themselves that it was just such a really, really positive environment. And to walk into this room where all these people were, and to sort of go around the room and go, how'd you go? What you get? What did you dig? How big was it? It wasn't like the fishing stories where it's, it was this big. Because it was legit. Like, everyone had photos to prove. And it was like, here you go. Here's what I dug. Here's what I got. Here's what the process was. And then at one point we start walking around the room. I was talking to a fella, the president of the Bonsai Society of Victoria, and we were comparing our olive kisses on our arms, and both scratched to the hill, and lost a couple of litres of blood up on the dig site. But it was great. It was really exciting, and I think it was a nice way to sort of come together afterwards as well, and just say thank you, and that we appreciate being invited to someone else's turf, someone else's territory. Everyone did the right thing. Everyone was, stuck with the rules and acted as we should have acted, and everyone was very grateful, to be honest, to be part of it. And it was just a really, really lovely event. And I remember going home that night thinking I've got to get up the next morning and leave Adelaide at about 5:30. So it was going to be an early night to bed, and I remember just laying in bed thinking that was an experience that I'll not forget. Like I said, I've dug trees, and normally when you do this sort of stuff, you might do it by yourself, or I don't know. Being involved with digs isn't something that I normally do. And I wanted to be part of this one because I was there at the inception when this idea was put together, and it sort of grew legs, and I want to really support it, and I also want to be part of it. And I'm so glad that I was part of it now, because it was unique. It was very, very unique in that I'm sure there'll be others. Hopefully there'll be others. Hopefully the guys in South Australia keep inviting more people to come along and join their club and be part of it, and everyone acts, as they should, and he's truly grateful of the opportunity that they're given, but there'll never be a first, and so to be part of that first one for me felt really, really special, and I don't know, I'm just really grateful to have been part of it. So anyway, load the car up again. Got these trees in the back, 2 for myself, 1 to take back as a gift for someone, and the fella in Adelaide, Dave, got his tree out. So anyway, I've got everything in there. Started heading home, and I tell you, it was a lot of it was driving in darkness and whatever else, but coming into just before Beaufort where these trees were again, it was exactly the same thought for me. And as I was coming through there, it was just like, oh, what an awesome weekend, to have these feelings about trees and bonsai, and to have been in that environment where you're collecting something for yourself that's in sometime in the future. It could achieve my objective. It could be the best bonsai in the world, which to me, I really want to put my backbone into this thing and make it as good as I possibly can. But to get that feeling of common love for these trees, it's awesome. It's such a nice experience. So I felt like I was floating all the way home. That was until I got home at, I think it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I really, maybe later. Anyway, it's a bloody long day, and I was completely knackered. And the last thing I wanted to do was pot up these trees, but pot up the trees I did. So I dragged these stumps. By this stage, they felt like they'd gained weight. They felt so bloody heavy, these things. Threw them into the middle of the workshop, laid out a tarp, and I thought, well, now they've got this big, on a few of them where they hadn't grown on rock, there was a bit of an onion bulb underneath. So I thought, well, do it now. Don't do it in the future. Sort this out now. So I got out the chainsaw, cut off the base of the olives, which is fine. They're more than hardy to handle this sort of stuff, and the wood's very hard that's in there, so it'll never rot. And then get them into pots. And I thought, well, that's cool. I've got a heap of large grow pots for these things, so that'll be right. And I hadn't planned anything else. Lo and behold, get the biggest one out, the Nabari on this thing, side to side. And imagine a big disc, like a big plate. It's 40 centimetres across, edge to edge. So the pot that it goes into has got to be at least 50, maybe 60 centimetres all the way around. Now, most bonsai pots that you're going to get that are about 60 centimetres wide are going to be 35, 40 centimetres deep. So that won't fit the tree, because I want to make sure that I can encourage roots to grow equally around the base of this tree. So I got out the black plastic pots, and they won't fit. This thing's just bigger than the mouth of the largest black plastic pot that I had, and I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like I'm seriously, I've got these eyes hanging out the back of my head. I'm ready just to go and put my feet up and have a cuppa and go to sleep on the couch. I'm thinking, I'm going to have to go to the hardware store and buy some timber and knock something up. This is the one thing I hadn't planned for. I hadn't prepared for this. And then I suddenly thought, hang on, I've got a lot of big bonsai pots in the shed. Get in there and have a look. See what you got available. Tear open the shed, look in there. Luckily, the story's got a happy ending, because I found an enormous mica, so a plastic round pot, like a drum pot sort of shape. It's about 55 centimetres across. Put the tree in there, and I went, oh my God, how good is this? And I can even put tie-in wires into this thing as well. So I put in there a nice drainage layer of almost, let's call it straight pumice in there for the tree to sit on for the next couple of years. Covered up over part of the nabari of the tree, put some sphagnum moss on there as well, secured the tree in there so there's no movement, tucked it away into a really nice sheltered spot in the yard, because I can't move this thing very often. It's bloody heavy. Repeated the process for the next tree, which the nabari was about 35 centimetres all the way around. So again, still a really nice tree, but had to go into an actual round bonsai pot, that one. Same process, same open mix, exactly the same. Tucked in the corner. Give them a good drink. I've been asked whether you soak them in sea salt before you pot them up, and you can do that. They're a tough species, these things, so don't have to be. So my approach with it was to get them in the pots, get them covered as soon as I could while I still had the energy and the inclination to do it before there's any dieback, any serious dieback on the thing. And then I'll treat it with plant starter, which I've talked about for shock, and also treat it with sea sole as well, which is all happened in the last couple of days. So they've just got a bud now, and the plan with them is that when they start to bud, just leave them alone. I'm not going to touch them. I'm not going to cut them. I'm not going to prune them. I'm not going to be selective, because there'll be residual energy inside the trunk. I want that to push out. I want it to convert into root growth. And once I get a really strong, solid root system on this thing, then I'll come back and look at it. So nature's done, the bonsai gods have done their thing growing this magnificent Nabari and trunk and giving me taper that I need in there. There's some ugly stump cuts on there that I'll have to sort out somewhere down the track, but that's for another podcast. In about 3 years' time, I reckon you'll hear me yabbering on about this, saying, I remember back in season 6, episode 31, when I talked about the olive dig. Well, anyway, it was very exciting. So my advice to you, which is given with complete bonsai love, is if you get the opportunity to be part of something like this, and you can reach out and connect with other bonsai nutbags, enthusiasts, lovers, then do it in any way you can. And it doesn't matter whether it's at a bonsai show, or whether it's at a dig, or whether it's at a workshop, or it's your bonsai network where you get together and have a couple of beers and work on trees together. Whatever it is, the feeling of that I've got from this, that spark, that vigor, that spring in my step that I've got now, it's amazing. I think it's, my tree love exudes from every pore that I've got, but to see other people where it does it the same, and to be in the same room together, and to all be part of the one environment, the one group, it's incredible. I love it. It's really special. So thank you again to everyone who put this together. You're bloody legends. It's been a hoot, and I can't wait for the next one. We are so close now to winter being over and done with. The days certainly feel like there's a bit more warmth in them. Definitely at my workshop, my studio, my backyard, my bonsai collection certainly feels like there's that lift of spring in the air, and it's lovely. It's really nice. You see a lot of the buds starting to pop, flowers opening up on trees. It's just like the dark days of winter are over. It's great, but I've got to make sure that I'm done with repotting. It's really, it's only a couple of weeks left from now to make sure that everything's fully done. So if you have got repotting to do, make sure that you get it done. Don't leave it, because it's a long time. You're either going to do it at the wrong time of the year, you're going to pay the price for it, or you're going to miss it, and it's going to be another year where you have to consider or do it. So just look at that tree and think. Don't think about now. Don't think about how it looks now. Don't think about how it's going to look in a couple of weeks' time when spring gets here. Don't think about it in another month's time when all that beautiful lush foliage is out. Think about it in the heart of summer when it's 40 odd degrees and it's blowing a gale, and that tree needs to get water up to its system. If the root system is jammed in there, if it's in the wrong mix, if you've got poor roots, that is when you are going to pay the price. That's when your tree's going to pay the price, and you're going to feel the pain of it too. So just a subtle reminder, a community service announcement that I like to make, that you've got a couple of weeks to sort it out, and after that, pretty much for the exotic species, as far as I'm concerned, the window starts to close for the repotting window for them. For me, in Victoria, in Melbourne. In your environment, it might be different. Hopefully it is, and you've got some more time up your sleeve. Whatever it is, just make sure that you're on top of your game, because it's a long time and it's a painful time to wait. And if you haven't been through, if this is your first journey coming in towards a summer with your trees, then just err on the side of caution with repotting. And my preference is to make sure that you understand how those roots are going to form and develop in the short period of time we've got before summer gets here. Anyway, enough of that. I hope you enjoyed that chat about the olive dig. As I said, I truly loved it. I'm still buzzing about it, and I think I'll I'll be buzzing about it and telling the story about it for a bloody long time, because it was so much fun. And my wrists are still sore from the crowbar hitting a rock directly under the tree and vibrating for about 30 seconds and nearly breaking every bone I had in my body. But would I do it again? Oh, in a heartbeat. It was lovely. It was great. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening in. Appreciate the support that I get through this podcast, and I am touched by the reach that I get so far and wide around every corner of the globe, and I love the messages that I get from people that say that they love the podcast and they listen to it. So thank you. It's bloody humbling, to be honest, but it means a lot. So if there's anything I can ever do for you, please reach out and let me know, because I'm always happy to. Until next time, happy bonsai.